The main reason I came to Eagle Pass today was to meet with the U.S. Customs and Border Protection workforce, the agents of the United States Border Patrol, the officers in CBP's Office of Field Operations, agents from Air and Marine Operations, and the personnel who support them. These public servants are heroes. On ordinary days, they work the front lines, enforcing our laws at great personal risk so that others, the American public, all of us, can be safe and secure. They are incredibly talented, dedicated, courageous, and selfless. These agents and officers encountered an historic number of migrants in December, including large numbers of migrants who arrived at the border at one time, putting tremendous stress on our broken immigration system, our under-resourced facilities, the communities. I met with Eagle Pass elected leaders earlier today, and most importantly, our agents and officers themselves. Yet, these agents and officers managed through it, all as they always do. They processed the migrants into immigration enforcement proceedings in an orderly way. They returned and removed those who have no claim for relief or legal basis to remain. They rescued migrants in distress, and they overcame unfortunate obstacles along the way. They are to be recognized and commended, and that is why I am here today. We now need Congress to do their part and act. Our immigration system is outdated and broken and has been in need of reform for literally decades. On this, everyone agrees. It is the very reason why President Biden submitted to Congress on his very first day in office proposed legislation. Now, 3 years later, I am privileged to be working with both Republicans and Democratic senators who are working tirelessly on much-needed reform and long overdue fixes to our broken system. We need Congress to provide the supplemental funding that President Biden requested months ago. We need more Border Patrol agents and more case processors so that the agents can be out in the field doing the heroic work that is their fundamental mission. We need more officers so that migration surges do not force mitigation measures of last resort like bridge closures. We need more asylum officers and immigration judges so that we can resolve asylum claims quickly, granting relief when it is warranted, removing migrants when it is not, and reducing the 3 million case immigration court backlog that has been growing for years and years. We need more technology to combat the smuggling of fentanyl through our ports of entry, and more facilities to process and detain migrants during immigration enforcement proceedings. We need more transportation funding to facilitate an increase in removal flights, and more resources for detention beds and alternatives to detention, and to bolster our family expedited removal management, or FIRM, process. We have taken bold, necessary actions during the time that Congress has failed to act. We have established safe mobility offices to assist migrants in Colombia, Costa Rica, Guatemala, and Ecuador, implemented processes to enable different nationalities to access relief in the United States without making the perilous journey in the hands of smugglers, begun processing an historic number of refugees from our hemisphere, removed and returned historic numbers of migrants who entered illegally and failed to qualify for relief, empowered asylum officers with new authority to streamline the asylum claims process, implemented regulatory changes that incentivize migrants to follow safe, orderly, and lawful pathways, and so much more. We have listened to our workforce and equipped them with what they need to do their jobs, including new technology, logistical support, processing coordinators, innovative tools, 11 new processing facilities, and hundreds of additional personnel to support their operations, including the first increase in the number of Border Patrol agents in 11 years. The high number of migrants we have encountered at our southern border is a challenge that is not unique to the United States. Countries throughout our hemisphere, in fact, throughout the world, are experiencing an unprecedented number of displaced people fleeing poverty, authoritarian regimes, homes destroyed by extreme weather events, corruption, and violence. The regional challenges require regional solutions, and that is why Secretary of State Blinken and I, with the White House Homeland Security Advisor Sherwood Randall, were in Mexico 2 weeks ago, why I spoke with Panama's Minister of Security last week, and why, among other engagements in the region, I will be traveling to Central America in the coming weeks, as I have throughout the past 3 years. We are grateful for Mexico's renewed enforcement commitments to address the movement of people north. We are working with other countries throughout Latin America, including Panama, to address the movement of people throughout the hemisphere. We continue to develop lawful pathways, deliver consequences for those who do not use them, address root causes, and attack the ruthless smuggling organizations that prey on the vulnerable. Some have accused DHS of not enforcing our nation's laws. This could not be further from the truth. Having begun my public service career as a federal prosecutor for 12 years, ultimately serving as the United States Attorney, there is nothing I take more seriously than our responsibility to uphold the law. And the men and women of DHS are working around the clock to do so. The individuals who have been returned to their countries of origin certainly know this. After the ending of Title 42 in May of this year, through the end of the fiscal year, DHS removed or returned more non-citizens without a basis to remain in the United States than in any other 5-month period in the last 10 years. In fact, the majority of all migrants encountered at the southwest border throughout this administration have been removed, returned, or expelled, a majority of them. We are doing everything we can within a broken system to incentivize non-citizens to use lawful pathways, to impose consequences on those who do not, and to reduce irregular migration. We will continue to do everything we can, and we will continue to enforce the law. But we need Congress to make the legislative changes and provide the funding that our frontline officers so desperately need. What is remarkable is that through it all, the brave men and women of U.S. Customs and Border Protection and their partners in the Department of Homeland Security have and will continue to put on their uniforms, don their badges, and work at great risk to themselves in the service of their mission to keep us and our country safe and secure. I am proud to be here to recognize, commend, and thank them and their families for their service and their sacrifice. But they need and deserve more than just recognition. They need and deserve the support and resources only Congress can provide. I would be pleased to answer your questions.
Hi, Mr. Secretary. Thank you. Thank you for holding this press conference. Why were the apprehension numbers in December so high? And are you confident that if Congress grants these resource requests, will that be enough to take care of future surges?
As I mentioned, I have been privileged to participate in the negotiations, the bipartisan negotiations, with both Republican and Democratic senators. If fixes to our broken immigration system are indeed delivered, if they are indeed legislated, and the resources we need to implement those legislative changes and address the under-resourcing of our agencies, I am confident that will have a dramatic impact on the number of encounters we are experiencing at the southern border. With respect to your question about the December surge, that was certainly an extraordinarily high number of encounters. It coincides with a time when Mexican enforcement was no longer implemented. The Immigration Enforcement Agency in Mexico was not funded. It is what prompted President Biden to reconnect with President López Obrador, as he has done consistently throughout his administration. The two have a very close working relationship. It is why I, Secretary Blinken, White House Homeland Security Advisor Sherwood Randall, traveled to Mexico 2 weeks ago to ensure their recommitment of immigration enforcement authorities and resources, and for us to also recommit our partnership, not only in the enforcement arena, but critically in ensuring the economic prosperity of both our countries, given our tremendously close economic relationship.
Mr. Secretary, you had mentioned a bunch of things that the administration is trying to do, but a new poll shows that 75% of the American people aren't getting it. What can you do message-wise to convince the American people that what's going on with the immigration, as far as the administration is concerned, is in America's best interest?
So it is opportunities like this that I will use to communicate the facts to the American people. As we all know all too well, the issue of immigration is an issue that is highly politicized, and it is very important that the American public understand the facts, the extraordinary dedication of the Department of Homeland Security's personnel. All this administration has done, and it's very important that they understand that the challenge that we are experiencing is a challenge that is a function of a number of factors. Number one, what we are experiencing at the southern border is not unique to the southern border or to the United States. The entire hemisphere is gripped with a level of migration that is unprecedented in recent history. In fact, it is something that is gripping the entire world. Number two, we are dealing with fundamentally a broken immigration system, and one that has been in dire need of repair for more than 3 decades. But within the constraints of a broken immigration system, at a time when the world, and this hemisphere in particular, is experiencing an unprecedented level of displaced people, we are creating creative solutions to a significant problem that is not unique to us. The senators, the Republican and Democratic senators that I've been privileged to be at the table with, along with my colleagues from the White House, have been working tirelessly to reach a framework, to reach a legislative solution that both the Senate and the House can pass, and that can transform the manner in which we address the challenges of migration that are so very different than they were 10, 20, and 30 years ago. Our system has not been updated for decades, and yet the landscape of migration is so dynamic and so much different than it was years ago.
Mr. Secretary, over here, I'm sorry. Most of the migrants that we spoke to, specifically in December, they come with no address to go to, and they're coming because they're being released. What are the consequences that are going to be taken with these migrants that are being released, and especially the ones that are coming because they see that it's easy to get here?
Well, first of all, I would take issue with your characterization that it is easy to get to the United States. I think we all know very well the perilous journey that migrants take in the hands of ruthless smugglers who don't care about their well-being. They care only about making a profit. That perilous journey has been reported and has been shared with us as Border Patrol agents interview migrants. It is very important to understand that when an individual is released, they are released into immigration enforcement proceedings where they can make a claim under the laws that Congress has passed. And if their claim does not succeed, they are removed and they are subject to a 5-year ban on admission. We have returned, removed, or expelled an extraordinary number of individuals, and we will continue to do so as we enforce the laws.
Senator, based on the talks with the Mexican president, do you believe that we're going to keep seeing a clean border without massive crossings?
We believe that when we work in partnership with countries to the south, with Mexico, with Panama, with Costa Rica, with Colombia, with Ecuador, with all of the countries, we will have a significant impact on the number of encounters that we experience at our southern border. And it is too early to tell whether the significant drop in the number of encounters we have experienced over the past week is a function of the season, the holiday season, or whether it is a function of the fact that the Mexican authorities have resumed their enforcement operations, and it very well may be a combination of both. It is too early to tell, but we're watching it very carefully. We remain vigilant, and we are tremendously proud of the ceaseless work of U.S. Customs and Border Protection.
What are you specifically asking President López Obrador to step up, and what are your expectations for the coming visit in Washington again with Mexican officials? Will something practical come out of that?
So our president, has spoken with President López Obrador on a number of occasions. They have a very close relationship and a very close working relationship. Our trip to Mexico was for the purpose of ensuring the commitment on both sides of the border, that we would do what we represented we would do, and that the Mexican authorities would do what they represented they would do. And they are taking a number of enforcement mechanisms, such as ensuring that their checkpoints are staffed along the migratory path, that individuals are removed from the north to the south, that individuals who can be repatriated from Mexico to their countries of origin are in fact repatriated, and that we are able to remove individuals of certain nationalities to Mexico, which we are doing. And the gentleman referred to an upcoming meeting again between leadership in the United States and leadership in Mexico, and that is scheduled for later this month.
There's a group of 3,000 to 5,000 people in the southern border right now. What changes are they going to see once they reach the southern border with the United States?
If in fact the Mexican authorities execute on their commitments, many of those individuals will not reach the southern border in the first place.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.